Welcome to this podcast. Why are we recording it? We are inviting special guests to share their insight and experience for our GSE students at the University of Klagenfurt here in Austria. GSE is short for Game Studies and Engineering, and it's a master's program at the University of Klagenfurt in Austria, where we focus on teaching students the interdisciplinary nature of games. So not only engineering or not only reflection about games, but both and a combined approach. Today, we're taking a step back from coding and game mechanics to actually look at something that is not a core topic at our studies, but equally important, how to present your game to the world. Whether it's to players, press, or award juries, a great game needs a great presentation. And we'll talk about Steam pages, itch.io submissions, award submission material, and how to get people actually click on your game or talk about your game even better. We'll explore that and more with our special guest, Fabian Schober. Fabian is a lecturer here in the GSE program, but more importantly, he's co-founder of Dirty Paws Studio, and has extensive experience presenting games from countless game jam games, for instance, on itch.io, to a full commercial release with Electric Alps on Steam. Fabian, can you say a few words about yourself?
Hello, thank you for having me here, Matthias. Yeah, well, I think you already mentioned the core parts, being both studio founder and a lecturer at GSE. Yeah, for my background, to go to game jams. Actually, my first impressions in game making actually came out of the various Klagenfurt game jams in its various iterations. So that's where my story started. I think exactly 11 years ago, in 2015, where I started attending all the game jams, back then mostly co-founded with Matthias. Yeah, then our journey into game making started together with Daniela Meinhardt, our studio's artist. And then we thought, okay, we really like making games and game jams. What about doing it professionally? So we founded Dirty Paws Studio as a part-time studio next to our daily jobs here in Carinthia, and combined it all with our lecturing experience. And here we are nowadays.
Awesome. Especially here at the podcast. That's great. Thank you for coming. And me, I'm Matthias, and I'm hosting and moderating. Not much else there. So, of course, let's go for the main thing. A few questions, which I can throw to Fabian. Short disclaimer, of course, I've shared the questions with him before. So that's why he's so cool and chill and relaxed about the whole approach. And of course, yes. Cup comparisons. Mine is just the old people Stanley Cup. So you did make the transition from making smaller games for game jams, which you sometimes still do, and great jams too, I have to say, because of course I'm following your itch.io page. And then you actually went forward with a research project, which should turn out to be a commercially successful product, which then got shelved for some time, and then coming back with Electric Alps, which you published on Steam. How did you approach your change? Or what was the biggest issue with making those small games to going big?
That's a great question. I think there are mostly two parts, so two pitfalls here. First of all, game jams are a great chance to get connected with people. In our case, we knew already each other, but I got to know so many talented people, and I had the chance to work with so many different types of people, which kind of shaped my initial impressions of game making, being really fun, being about people. Well, it is about people after all, but very, not really relaxed, but fun. And so when you then change into a mindset of making games professionally, there's a huge change. Suddenly, the games are bigger. It's not something that you can just wrap your head around and make a one-pager game design document, but these are really chunks of software, of engineering, of organization, of marketing, and suddenly you have all these things meshed together that you typically don't think about when doing a game jam game. So when we were confronted with our first commercial game called Project Octopus, as Matthias mentioned, we got more research-related funding about it because we wanted to do a little bit of AI interaction. It was about the arms of an octopus acting independently one another, and you as a player only given it intentions. So we had to wrap this a little bit around. And yeah, suddenly we were sitting there with the realization, okay, we have our own company. We are responsible for everything, for not only making the game itself, which was our original plan, but suddenly, as said, you have so many different hats to put on. Suddenly you're a studio founder, you have to work around finances. if you like it or not, somebody has to do it. All the entrepreneurial stuff, so student management, technical decisions, strategic decisions. Where do you want to be in, let's say, half a year time, 2 years time? Do you want to employ people? Do you want to employ yourself? Do you want to pay yourself? Should it be for fun? So suddenly it was not only about making games, but suddenly it was about having a project on basically on your shoulders. So that was the biggest, wouldn't say issue, but realization we had. And the second part is more in the game design focus. Especially nowadays, it's not really a pitfall or a showstopper technical-wise when you make a game, unless you do something very, very innovative and cutting-edge technology. But typically, if you have an idea, you most likely are able to build it. Please don't build an MMO as a first-time studio unless you have experience. But apart from that, if you do a platform, if you do a strategy game, everything pretty much is reachable nowadays, but you have to tackle it in another way than a game jam game. With a game jam game, you have a kind of crude idea what the game should be about, most likely brainstormed in 1 or 2 hours. And if you're good, then you playtested it with paper prototyping or something like that. And then you think, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's build it. I think it's a cool game idea. But when you actually build a game, you have to really test your idea and find out if your game idea is fun for more than 10 minutes, like a game jam game. And that was the second issue we struggled with. We had this vague idea of a 2D Project Octopus game where you play as an octopus. And we thought, okay, having 8 intelligent arms sounds fun. Let's go for it. And half a year later, we're still exactly at the same step. We had this idea. There should be the fun in there, but we couldn't figure out exactly where it is. So we built stuff and added to it, and suddenly found out we stepped into the classical pit of feature creep and started adding things up and figured out, okay, if we continue at this pace, our game will be finished in 5 to 6 years' time, which is not really something we wanted to do. So then we actually had to step back, try to isolate our main core idea of the game. We were kind of able to do it, figure out, okay, people like the controls, not really necessarily the 8 arms, but the underwater movement and these puzzles we had, and in total the atmosphere. But exactly at this time, it also matched up with having a new idea about Electric Alps. So we kind of shelved our old project and took the new one on board.
Okay, and for Electric Alps, you did everything better?
Yes.
With no feature creep?
There was, of course, there's always feature creep a little bit, at least in a game design document. I think it has 70 pages or so now. Half of them could be shelved, to be honest. But yeah, if I can extend a little bit on that question, because I think it's important. With Electric Alps, we did it the other way around. We had this vague idea, again, in the beginning, typically ideas are very vague, of making a electrical engineering-based puzzle game. It was important for us. It's not a learning game or educational game. It has an educational aspect, but it's about wiring up houses in a more or less realistic way, but it's about solving wiring puzzles. And so what we did, maybe Matthias can share a link with the video podcast later. I have a presentation.
I'll do that in the show notes, of course.
Perfect. With a couple of pictures, both screenshots and photos of our prototyping journey across a couple of months, where we started out actually buying all types of electrical equipment, putting on our studio floor, and just spending a full weekend with coffee and other beverages, just testing around what could work in the game. Then we moved to a digital platform and iterated upon it until we got a kind of good impression how the game could feel like in 1 or 2 years' time.
Great. Thank you very much. That's actually hugely important, because that's what the lecture we are recording the video podcast for is about, the transition from the game jam game to half a year project, which sounds like not so bad, but is actually huge based on my experience. And thank you for saying that out loud with even longer projects than half a year. Okay, great. Let's get back to the topic I prepared you for, that we don't venture forth into more ventured territory. So presenting the game, of course, is key, that actually people get hooked, that actually people get a feeling they need to have this game to buy it. And then, of course, that you talk to the right people so that you also have people that buy or download the game that actually want to play it and has a huge replayability value for them. So it should be a win-win situation. So what would be the key components to present your game? How do you bring your vision across?
Well, now we are touching the focus or the area of marketing, which is a huge balloon. But if I were to nail down one thing, it would be the ability to presenting your game in an interesting way. In my lectures, if I can digress a little bit, one assignment is to make a kind of a short pitch documentation for your game, including all the funding part. But the most important part I'm looking forward is how to present your game in an interesting way in 30 seconds or less. Because that's pretty much how it boils down. It could be an elevator pitch to publishers, could be just to Matthias for a master's project, could be a funding agency here in Klagenfurt or anywhere else, could be actually one award show or one of the PGDA programs, but the same accounts also for Steam. If you look at the Steam page, the first thing you do is maybe read I think it's 150 words description. Maybe you look at the capsule image, maybe you look on the trailer for the first 30 seconds or so, but what you don't do is directly scrolling down to the description and read through the description. Additional information you have to have, but it's not the important part. So if I were to say the most important or the key aspect of presenting a game is finding its strengths and really putting the finger on it. It shouldn't be about all the features you have and just listing them, but find the unique selling proposal of your game. What does your game do uniquely, do different than other games? And what that is, it depends on your audience. If it's Steam and you're making a platformer, find out about maybe your graphics are really good, maybe you have an innovative mechanic, maybe you have a good story. Put that first and foremost. All the other content, all the other mechanics, don't talk about the individual mechanics if they are not that innovative. That should be your core focus.
Nice. Thank you very much. I think a lot of that rings a bell in my head too, like the 30 seconds attention span, which I typically have. And also to look at the Steam page and then identify what do you actually see. As you said, it's those 150 words. It's the first 30 seconds of a trailer. It's the capsule image, all those things, maybe the tags, maybe the number of reviews or something like that. And the very positive, of course, we have.
And if I may, one old tip, so to say, not thinking about digital games, but the old ones, or you can still buy that for PlayStations. Actually, the box art on the Blu-ray sets, have a look at them. Just go to the store and look at 10, 15 of them over there if they still have it. And check out how they are designed. Not necessarily about the visual design, but do they have some kind of a key phrase like save the princess, defeat Bowser, jump on his head, something like that, and try to figure out different or kind of equal wordings for your game. It doesn't have to land in the Steam page after all, but it helps you wrap your head around the key aspects of your game.
That would be for the octopus game, don't entangle your arms. Catch breath after some time. Great.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, Fabian, of course, is also a lecturer at the Game Studies and Engineering program, as he already mentioned. What lecture are you teaching?
In the upcoming semester, I'm not teaching one. Professor Emmerich is taking over my typical course, but most likely in the winter semester, we do it as switcheroo every now and then. I'm holding the course again on selected topics in game engineering with the subtitle, could be game production, as I've done in the past, but could also be the new one, tutorials and the importance of first impressions.
Nice. Also extremely important. I just started playing a few old games because I built myself a Steam box because it won't be coming in the next moments. And I got a cheap mini computer, but that was actually really, really very bad thing in the old games. So I played Batman Arkham Asylum and the tutorial is extremely lengthy. You cannot skip it. For replayability, very bad. For hooking people in, great, but yeah. There are more dimensions than that. So important lecture. Go there. Okay. So what are common pitfalls? So the other way around. We discussed what is very important, but what are common pitfalls? What do people typically do wrong?
Describe the game in a very generic way. I wouldn't say boring way, but very generic way, like listing all the features or like one for one mentioning this game is about you in a wood and you want to escape and have to face obstacles and enemies on the way. Yeah, well, you're just listing game mechanics. You can make it sound more impressive if the game is limbo or inside. I think that's one of the main pitfalls. The other is, I think, marketing in itself, but don't quote me on that. I have the same relation to marketing, online marketing and social media like the devil has with holy water. So Our game actually is not really sold on Steam right now. It's still in production, and we don't do a lot of social media marketing, but actually we are working together with local institutions like schools and educational institutions. So that's more our thing. But if you have Sebastian here, just check out his social media presence. That's what you should do. So don't follow my steps here. That's also important. Other pitfall is not just investing enough time in it. If you just think about it for Steam or for itch, you need to have a kind of a capsule image, a couple of screenshots, the short abstract, so to say, the description, and the longer description. So that's pretty much what you have to do. And if you just were to take it as a university assignment, don't quote me on that, it could be done in 1 or 2 hours, to be honest, but the quality is really bad. But that's the first thing people see of your game. So invest the time. The first edition you're going to do will be bad. So iterate upon it, test it with other people, what they think about it, and just get it working. It's like a well-aged wine. It's not very good in the beginning, but if you don't iterate on a wine, so to say, but if you come back to it every now and then and change it, it will become better.
Yeah, I think you iterate on whiskey with the angel share, but that's another story. But yeah, that's a good point. So the first image might not be the one that you end up with, and there are multiple iterations in between, but it's important to take a fresh look once in a while and change it, of course. Speaking of the image, that is one part to make your game stand out. What else would make a game recognizable so that it stand out in the mass of indie games? I don't know the latest statistics, but there were up to 500 game releases on the Apple Store per month. And of course, how many new games do you scroll through on a mobile phone? And how do you make your game stand out?
Yeah, I don't have the current statistics in mind, but I think on Steam it's hundreds of games every day. So it will become worse with AI, of course. So couple of years ago, we had all these asset flips and very generic platformers. And I can assume, I haven't checked it in the last couple of months, that now we have a lots of copies using AI, maybe also using AI generated art, I presume. It is allowed after all nowadays on Steam. Yeah, to stand out, it's not one question like do this and you will stand out. Of course, having very beautiful graphics will help you get the point across. Maybe you get the impressions and even wish lists. But I think what would be the core focus here is, again, it's very general, of course, is making good presentation, like having a good trailer. It shouldn't be just 30 seconds of gameplay with a coming soon at the end. There's a great video, I think, by Game Maker's Toolkit on YouTube about the very basic structure of a game trailer. It pretty much follows a standard pitch deck, like start with a very short hook, typically with 30 seconds elevator pitch, but it's too long for a trailer, so it should be, I think, 5 to 15 seconds at most in the beginning. Doesn't have to tell you much about the game, should just look interesting, and then follow up with the individual elements of the game, like what is it about, what does it look like, what is the core focus, what is the genre. So if you have something like that, if you have a good trailer, you have a very good starting point, so to say. And also the capsule art shouldn't be put aside as unimportant. We still do iterations upon that, but the capsule art is basically the key art, so to say. So all the images in its various formats, I think there are 20 different formats it ends up in Steam. So basically the cover image you see on Steam. Some games, especially on the lower quality end, do only screenshots with a very generic title on top. That's not very engaging. So if you have a look at ours or maybe Sebastian's, you see we have this game graphics on the one hand, which is in the screenshots, of course, and also in the trailer, but the capsule art itself is a totally different art style, but with the same elements. With Sebastian, it's side totem games, it's his spider over and over again doing shenanigans. With us, our game Electric Alps has this core correlation to Austria and electrical engineering, so we put these together into a cover art, these Krapfen and landscape pictures and a couple of wiring tools. So if you do that, I think it's a story half won.
Okay, great. And can you think of a good example? I mean, I don't know if you know those. Most likely, you know Dungeons of Hinterberg. So that was one that I would mention. But also, I think Australia did it. I don't know if you have followed that. The new game from Rami Ismail stood out for me in that sense. Do you have an example that hooked you and why?
I think one example that really hooked me, and I'm kind of biased here, is Wild True Learn from Luden.io. It's an AI educational puzzle game. It was a little bit of an inspiration for Electric Alps. I think that's actually a good example because the gameplay itself looks boring. It's really interesting, but basically you're making a flow diagram. So you have boxes with individual AI systems and you connect them with lines to each other. So it doesn't look that engaging. But what they did, they wrapped a story about it that your goal in the game is making an AI system to let your cat talk. And so all the key art in the trailer, in the capsule image everywhere is this cat sitting on a computer having some kind of cyber augmentations. Yeah, and of course, cats sell well.
Cats sell, absolutely. Great. So, of course, there's always the huge barrier of taking the first step. So, for presenting a project, what would be for you a good starting place? Where would you start? Would it be an elevator pitch with slides? Would it be a trailer? Would it be an image or the text?
If you're talking about US students, take my course. We can always do a individual session on pitching. And if I'm doing the course on game production again, there's a 2 dedicated session on learning how to pitch in different situations and doing one more or less professional pitch. But on the other part, you should watch it twofold. One could be a professional pitch, like a pitch documentation or slide deck, in which you attempt to aim at a publisher or funding agencies. And another one is to talk about your game, present your game to the audience. So a very, very good start for the audience part is actually making good, and I underlined it, good, itch.io pages for your game jam games, because it could be a free and good test for Steam pages. You don't have to pay the 100 euros then. And you still can do all the parts. So you have a description, you can do a trailer, screenshots, even the page design in itch.io is a really good start. And I always urge my students to do that. Doesn't matter if it's a 2-hour game or let's say half a year game as you're supposed to do. So that would be a good start. And another one would be to follow along with the university, preparing yourself for presentation at awards or at the PGDA event. So think about something you want to have for your game. Could be a fictional funding proposal, could be a research proposal or something like that, and work towards that. And you will see those two a little bit different, because in the one hand, for the audience, you basically want to sell them based on the fun your game has. But for the other part, if it's PGDA, could be funding, could be research, you're more thinking about the business part of your idea. And those are two totally different pairs of shoes.
Great. That actually made me just pull out a window to check on my itch.io page. I think that is a great idea to do. I never thought of that. So thanks for bringing that up. I will definitely put it into the course, because optimizing an itch.io page and then do marketing for your own game, if you like it yourself, will lead to a visible impact on the download and play numbers, which you can actually access on itch.io. And that's really cool. So that is a very nice playground, actually. So thanks for coming up with that tip.
And another thing here, not necessarily about studio funding, but if you're looking for jobs after your studies or during the studies, when I prepared for my lectures, I talked to a couple of studios what the main thing is that they are looking for in young talents. And it's not about knowing specialized tools or maybe be an expert in animation or this or that. Of course, it depends on the proposed job position, but in general, what they are looking for is a portfolio. And if you're an artist, you should have one portfolio, a portfolio in one form or another. And if you're a game designer, game maker, game developer, whatever, game producer, your portfolio could be your itch.io page, and most likely is already. And if you put it on your resume or on your CV, and you send it to them and they have a look on it and they see a couple of maybe just random games put there, no description, no instructions, no screenshots, just a big play button, then you have the problem that it doesn't look that engaging. So if you fill that out, that's the first part of your journey.
Great. And just another quick question that I just shoot behind this one. So how do you approach the differences? I mean, each IO has a different audience, a different population of games where you need to stand out compared to Steam, compared to social media, compared to whatever, an award jury, for instance. So how would you approach that to find out what is the priority and what to talk about, what to present?
The priority depends on what you want to actually achieve. So if you want to put your game on Steam, maybe be an independent producer in your spare time or in your full time, and your goal is to get a wish list in order to find a publisher. It's the very classical story. Then you need to figure out what is important for Steam, and there are lots and lots of great resources online. So YouTube tutorials, lots of talks, GTC talks, everything. And if your idea is to fund a startup company in a more classical way, which I wouldn't say is easier, but it's more approachable, at least here in Austria, because we don't have that much of a venture capital thing going on here as opposed to other countries, then you should figure out how can you actually sell your game, if you're making a game, to people that more focus on money. So you don't, if you go, let's say, a funding agency here in Klagenfurt, and say you have this great idea about the game, they don't ask you that many questions about why your game is fun and the classical things that should be in a game concept document, but they mostly figure out or want to figure out together with you how are you actually going to make money in the long run, because, okay, we may give you money for 6 or 12 months. That's good. But how do you plan to survive afterwards? So will you sell your game? Will you do, I don't know, DLCs, consulting, contracting, whatever? And then you have to figure out what's the market for your game. Always give a couple of crude examples. If you have a very specialist idea that is very well defined, but it's only aimed at you and your family, of course, in my course, I would consider it's a well-defined market segment and target audience. But if you're practically only going to sell it to 10 people, then you most likely will get a hard pass from a funding agency. So there you have to figure out who will be buying your game. That's, I think, one of the most important parts.
Yeah, what are the goals of the people who want to throw money at you? Something like that. Thank you very much. That's a very good lens to look through, actually. So wrapping up, there was a lot of practical advice already in there, but for the course Advanced Topics in Game Engineering, where people have to finish up with a pitch towards the Development Association, Game Development Association Austria, what would be a good practical advice? Something that you say as a mantra and that makes you better, kind of.
Mantras are difficult for me, but if I were to give you one advice, if the ultimate goal is to present to the PGDA, do a pitch presentation and test it, most likely with Matthias in this course. I don't know how the schedule is going to be, but yeah, focus on that. And what I mean by pitch presentation, it's a slide deck, typically a very short one, and you're very hard time bound. Typically it's 3 to 7 minutes, and depending on the agency, I don't know how eager the people at PGDA are, but for example, at other funding agencies we pitch to, you are cut off after 3 minutes. So if you do a presentation, it shouldn't be kind of a free form, like you didn't prepare at all for it, or maybe only the slides and freestyle all the talking like we are doing right now. No, it should be rehearsed again and again, 5 times, 10 times, until every sentence you say is matching the time quota you have. And this pitch is typically very structured. You start out with an elevator pitch, and then your main idea, who your audience is, what the unique selling proposal is, the market you are going to address, so basically how much money you plan to make, how you're going to make money out of it, etc., etc., how much money you need. So I think that's the first and foremost part. All the other parts, I think they are very, very not easy, but very approachable to find out when you scroll through all the typical game dev tutorials.
So to sum it up, create a great pitch deck. Yeah, and I'll add my 50 cents because it tickles a nerve here. And a pitch deck is a set of slides, well structured, as Fabian said. It's not a game design document. You just open up in Google Docs and show to the audience, or it's not the itch.io page. You just show to the audience. It's specifically built by you for this specific audience. which means giving you the second time, you have to reconsider if the audience changed.
Exactly. Just to give you one example, you could have the same game presented to both a publisher and to a generic funding agency. It's about the same game. Most likely, you're going to say more or less the same thing. So how are you going to sell it, etc., the thing I talk about. But the publisher knows what you're talking about. The publisher knows better than you how to make money and how much money you most likely need. For the publisher, you most likely have to follow the innovational part of your game. So what does you stand out from all the rest that is also pitching to the same publisher? Whereas for the funding agency, they may have some experience with games. Nowadays, they're pretty much young people, so to say, under 30 from my experience. So they have gaming experience, but they want to know the very, very basics about gaming industry. So you should prepare.
Great. Thank you very much. Just look at the clock. I wanted to add one more question. So you also have been at festivals, of course, with your games. What is different when you want to present your game at a festival? Because then you don't have a pitch deck. What would you need, for instance, when you go to the Button Festival with Electric Alps? What do you bring?
Typically, or I think the most important part here is to consider the event both as a publicity event, so make your game feel good, have a very good first impression made for your game. It shouldn't be just a random level put there and nobody understands it. So there's one part, make it nice to look at, make it feel nice. But the other part is a little bit more important, I think, is approach it as a public playtest. In our very first event, back then it was with our old game, we had a random level pretty much put there. And then we figured out that explaining it to every person is tedious, especially if you're doing that for 2 days. You're going to get really, really hoarse. Sorry, still feeling it 2 years later. But also you don't get that much feedback out of it. But if you approach it like a playtest, so prepare a level, whatever that means in your game, it's totally depending on your genre. Maybe introduce a little bit of a tutorial. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be tested in advance because you are still there to help people out. But you get so many impressions out of it if your game is fun or if people don't like individual aspects of it. Or maybe they tell you, okay, this little thing you didn't really think about is the best part of your game. Yeah, make it mechanically and let's say graphically sound. And the second part is have a really testable piece of software there. If it's going to be a video game. And of course, if you're doing a card game, board game, you should have some streamlined gameplay in there. Because the better the game flow is, the better feedback you will get, but also the more impressions on your game and valuable feedback for game design you get out of it.
Great. Yeah, I think this also is something that I heard from multiple sites already. So I can definitely support what you said and the high priority of it. You don't want to explain your game to thousands of people. So make a good tutorial that is robust, stable, and explains 80% of the needed interaction, and have a good focused prototype where you can watch people playing it to let them tell you what they like and what they don't like. Nice. Thank you very much. So anything you want to add to the main block of transporting knowledge to the audience? Or is it okay for you?
I think I digressed already too much and put my senf in there at all the places.
Yeah, a very bad translation, put my custard in.
Yeah.
Gave my 50 cents, of course, to stick with a real English phrase. Yeah. So thank you very much for listening. Now to the audience, if you want to give feedback, you can, of course, use the platform you found the content on to rate and give feedback. So most likely it's on Spotify and YouTube. And you can contact us on email or via email using gse@aau.at. If you're interested in the program, Game Studies in Engineering, a master program, interdisciplinary master program at the University of Klagenfurt in Austria, where you can meet us as lecturers, then check out the webpage. I'll put it in the show notes along with all of the links. That's my promise that we talked about, and the games that we talked about. If you want to see a great example of a game presentation, then check out Electric Alps. Of course, we mentioned it. I'll put the Steam page down there and take a look at Dirty Paws Studio page, and there you will find the links to the itch.io pages and of course Steam. Our links again will be in the show notes. So that's it for it. That's it for today. Hope you had some fun. Any final words, Fabian?
Thank you so much for having me here. And you, of course, as well. And yeah, thanks for doing all the part. Really looking forward on what your students are going to achieve this semester.
Yeah, you're cordially invited to the PGDA event, of course. We'll post it on social media. We'll ask our experts how to do that. Okay, then. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.